Good evening, White Sox fans. It is Wednesday, March 5th. Uh, things are rolling right along here for us White Sox fans. We're getting closer and closer to opening day baseball. I don't know about my partner, Jacob Thome here, but I'm Danny Miller, and I am looking forward to getting back to the regular season. But in the meantime, I'm happy to have all of you hanging out with us live tonight, and all of you that will be checking us out on the podcast later on this week. But as we get rolling here, this is Hot Takes and Heaters. And how are you doing tonight, Jacob?
I'm doing well. Had some spring training stuff going on, so that's always fun. As you mentioned, can't wait for regular season to get started, but we're slowly counting down.
Right on, right on. I've had an eventful week, so I'm just gonna go on ahead and start the show with full disclosure notice here. I have not caught any baseball outside of what our very own Ian Eskridge does for us here with all the highlight reels and low light reels and everything else in between. And then, of course, if you haven't been following along with us, I would suggest you go ahead and check out our Twitter feed. We do have AAA Jeff Cohen and Elijah Evans are both down at in Arizona for spring training, and they've had a bunch of great little videos and some interviews that they're doing as well. So if you guys want to go ahead and give that a look, see, and check out some of the great content that those guys are putting out. But yeah, man, I've been busy because for some of a lot of folks, our old longtime listeners know I've been out of work for a while because of those health issues that we talked about a few weeks ago, and this past week I have been hot and heavy on getting everything together to start a new job next week. So yay.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's been back and forth, multiple interviews, paperwork and background checks and
yeah.
the whole nine. So
Process is never fun, but hey, once it's over with,
no, but it's a great opportunity for me, and I'm looking forward to it. So,
excited for it.
anywho, yeah, thank you, man, thank you. Uh, I guess we'll just get right into it. So, as our thumbnail on our tweet this afternoon said, we are going to look into getting into what the bullpen might shape up to be, as well as some of the catching depth that the White Sox have, and how that might play out throughout the season and what we're looking at in opening day. But I do want to kind of hit on some of just the news in the past week since we've gone on the show, and there's really not a ton to talk about here. But one of the things that is really just kind of seems to be like one of those White Sox things is we're getting hit with some early injuries here in the spring. Recently we talked a little bit about Prelander Baroa, in recent shows, and there hasn't been any kind of real update other than the fact that they are not going to, pursue any kind of surgery, including Tommy John, and they're going to kind of let the rehab go, do the trick and see where he's at. But the fact that there's no update in like
Yeah.
over a week now is a little concerning, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on that really quickly since we've already talked about it a few times. But how does that make you feel that we haven't heard anything in like 8 or 9 days?
Yeah, it's really weird. I've weirdly applauded the White Sox social media team for like putting out updates. Like we'll talk about him in a second, but like when Benny got hurt, they had like a timeline tweet out within like 2 hours, I want to say, which is just insane. Um, it's a little scary on the no update part, but I think pitching can be tough. So we'll see. Um, there is a good thing about being a team that's not projected to do anything is that you have time. There's no reason to rush anybody back, right? Like, hey, if the dude doesn't feel 100%, don't rush him back. So I'm not that worried about it. Obviously, if he does need Tommy John, then he needs Tommy John, and it's a unfortunate setback for a guy who was projected to be the White Sox closer. But yeah, I mean, I think there is. You'd love to hear a positive update by now, but maybe the fact that there is no bad news, maybe you're playing the little no news is good news type of thing. But no, I mean, it's was the first injury of spring, so hopefully he's able to bounce back, and we're able to see him either opening day or shortly after that.
Yeah, it's pretty much my thoughts on it too. There is a reason I bring that up in kind of just some of the injuries in general here, and you'll kind of see where my thought process goes when we come full circle and all that. But I'm glad you brought up Benintendi, and I'm glad that you brought up how they put the timeline out rather quickly. It almost kind of plays. It was a great segue, almost playing into exactly where I wanted to go, and we didn't even discuss this
Yeah.
pre show, but the Benintendi thing, I agree with you that it was nice to have a quick update and kind of just like here's where we're at. We got the X-rays. There is a fracture. It's not the kind of fracture that typically keeps a guy out very long. And then they come right out and say, we're looking at 4 to 6 weeks. Now, does that 4 to 6 weeks include rehab time? Is there going to be rehab time? That really hasn't been very clear. But all all indications from any kind of doctor's reports suggest that it's very possible he could come back from that in the 4 to 6 week range. And friend of the show, Beef Loaf. By the way, I don't even have my comments turned on here. Let me go ahead and do that. Sorry, guys. So, thanks for checking in. But I want to say that Beef Loaf has been kind of on the, I don't even know how to put it. And I just kind of lost my train of thought. I'm not going to lie. Where was I at?
Talk about Beef Loaf, Benintendi timeline. Ring a bell.
Oh, right. So Beef Loaf is put out on his shows, the Au, and they've talked about it on the From the 108 podcast. That even if it's on the longer end of the timeline, that he could only miss like 12 games. If we go by the date and go exactly 6 weeks, that's without if there's any kind of rehab. Now, my question is though, in your opinion, do you feel like a guy who is the highest paid player on the White Sox should be rushed back with a wrist injury when you're hoping that this guy can maybe be part of the offense and maybe kind of return to the form that he had in the second half last year?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're looking at a guy who had a wrist injury last year, and they're already trying to rush him back. I'm pretty sure that he's already like, yeah, we're going to rush it back and try to be there for opening day, which would be the front end of that deadline. I just don't understand the point of rushing anybody back when you have a team that is not going to win anything. There's no, like, and you don't need Benintendi to play. There's not like there's a huge benefit to him playing hurt. I don't understand the point of rushing him back. I'd rather see somebody young play, which ironically it wouldn't be. It would be split between Slater and Taylor, I think. But
Well, that's if Slater's even able to
right, and that's if
to go
Slater's
at this
healthy, right?
point because he's another one of those guys. Now we just really recently heard that he's also injured, but we'll get into that in a second.
But I just don't understand the point of, he's signed to a 5-year contract. There's hope in the White Sox organization of trading him, which is going to be tough. But if you rush him back, you're just hurting his trade value. You're hurting the team because first half Benintendi was kind of what we saw, like playing through injury with the wrist injury. And there was just hope that after the bounce back of the wrist injury, he was going to be okay kind of second half and then have a good spring and transition over. So I don't understand the point of rushing a guy back with a wrist injury that you already saw what happened last year in 2024, and not being able to have the season he wanted, and then trying to do the exact same thing. It's his definition of insanity of doing the same exact thing and expecting different results. So, it's not like you're right. I just don't understand the point of rushing him back when there's nothing you need out of Benintendi other than him to be a plus player, which he can only do when he's healthy.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And again, I'm not a doctor. So, who knows? Maybe the reports are true, but, I just hope that they approach this thing correctly. Because, you bring up the fact that, you're hoping to kind of maybe trade this guy and get something in return, especially with the contract that, he's only being paid pretty much like an average outfielder at this point, even though it is the highest contract in White Sox history. But if you can get any kind of benefit out of his bat, you might be able to, trade him off. And at this point, with the payroll as low as it is, I don't see the White Sox having too much of an issue of eating some of his contract. Obviously, you're not going to want to eat all of it. And if there's any if there's any resemblance of the past 40 plus years with Uncle Jerry, he doesn't like paying players who aren't playing, right? He's not playing for his team. So this might be the best time to do it just because of the simple fact that the payroll is low. So we're kind of hoping that we get the best out of him when he does come back, and he does come back as quickly as possible, healthy, right? But
Yeah.
I don't want to rush him. If he's only going to miss 12 games at that 6 week mark, what's another week or two
Right.
where he misses another 6 games and you're up at 18 and you still got a little bit more time to rehab and be ready. So that's just kind of where my head's at on that.
I remember them rushing Luis when he was like swinging with one hand, and it was like, "What are you doing? Like it's stupid." I hate rushing
Luis,
players in any capacity unless it's for the playoffs. Unless
and
it's
we
for like
saw it with Aloy. Aloy couldn't
right,
run to first base. Luis, same thing. They were both hobbling running to first base, and we're trying to get these guys back in the lineup. In years that were beyond the 20 season and the 21 season, where did we really think we were still pushing for playoffs? No, we're just pushing guys to get injured, and it really is not a conducive to winning ball games and
right.
keeping the longevity of your players at stake here. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on to some of the other injuries really quickly before we get into the bullpen and the catchers. But we did talk about Austin Slater. He's out with an oblique now. Unfortunately, that's one of those ones that can linger, but it sounds like it's a low grade oblique strain. So hopefully, we're not looking at something that's too long for him. And I'll leave it at that, unless you have something you want to add.
No, I think that's well said.
Perfect. And then Michael A. Taylor, another one. So
Yeah,
our outfield keeps looking like there's going to be some opportunities at least early on in the seasons for some of these guys that we thought might not make the roster. And Michael A. Taylor is now showing up on an injury report now. What do you think about that and him being the potential replacement in center field for Luis Robert if Luis Robert gets traded, especially before the season, and now Taylor's hurt?
right.
Where's your head there?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think they have some more interesting names in AAA, quadruple A, guys who've played in the majors. I think Fletcher. I think you're comfortable with him in center. I know he majority played right, but he was a plus outfielder. I have. Oh, I can't think of the dude's name. Nope, that's the wrong guy. Anyway, so you have a couple of guys who have MLB experience in
Yeah,
the
you're
minor
probably
league.
thinking maybe Fletcher or Julks or Delo. I'm just trying to think
Jolks
of
is one of them. Who is? Hold on,
who's
I
on the
have.
40 man right now.
I will
I think
find you the name.
Fletcher might be the only one out of those
No,
guys
there's. I don't even know if he's
outside
on.
of Colas, and I don't know.
But yeah, you no longer have Gavin Sheets. Perfect point.
Thanks,
We still have
Buck,
Andrew
for that
Vaughn. You can move
comedy.
Andrew Vaughn to right and then play Joey Gallo at first. So
Ugh, goodness gracious. I mean, I guess if it doesn't really matter all that much, you could. I mean, we've seen
please,
that. We've seen that movie once or twice, but I mean, nothing like a little comic relief
yeah.
to early on in the show to get us going. So thanks for that, dude.
Uh,
And then I saw somebody else in the chat here, and I'm gonna go back and see if I can find that comment. Somebody was asking, oh, it was Max. Thanks for checking in with us, Max. Max asked if there's any news on Colson. And I don't know about you, but I haven't heard anything other than he's still considered like day to day with the back. You have any
that's what
updates on
Elijah
that?
tweeted out today. Shout out Elijah. Down in Arizona, but yeah, doing better. Still day to day. He continues to make progress. That was from Venable this morning. So back
Yeah.
injuries are tough. They scare me. Um, Went through it with Yoan. Joe Cree's another guy who had a bad back. Back injuries can be scary. Can really mess up your swing.
Yeah. And it's not like Colson is, this is not like this is a first time for him either. I mean, the back is what kind of took him away from being him most of last season, much of last season, recovering and dealing with back issues. Now the thing here's the interesting thing for me is this is almost the exact opposite of what we were talking about with Benintendi, and maybe it's because Colson's such a highly touted prospect and has been talked about for years, and one of the biggest names that fans have been waiting for to come up through the system and hit the MLB club. And it's their unwillingness to really say much about what's going on with Colson, and almost as if they're trying to protect their status
Yeah.
as a team and an organization on a guy like Colson Montgomery than they are maybe the player. And they're just there's things where I feel like they're quick to come out with, and then there's other things where I feel like they're just holding back, and that's a little off-putting to me as a White Sox fan. I thought we were kind of turning the corner on some of that stuff, but how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I know. I think another hard thing is it's harder to diagnose a back injury. So maybe they truly don't have the information.
That's a
I
great
mean,
point,
back
actually.
spasms can last like a day. They can last, a year. They can last forever. You can never if you have back issues, they may never go away. But listen, the kid's 23. The issue Colson had is he got drafted in 21 out of high school, hit really well, was like the only promising prospect for the White Sox, especially on the hitting side. Um, so everybody's kind of heard about him forever, and I think people think he's a lot older than he is. But he was drafted out of high school in 21, just turned 23,
Right.
just a little bit ago, February 27th. So I don't think I'm worried about it. Obviously, I think I'm worried about the back. I don't know if I'm necessarily worried about the unwillingness of the White Sox to put out any statement, because I seriously think they don't know what's going on with him.
Yeah, I think that's probably a
So,
good as explanation as any. I just know that I happened to read an article earlier, and I just wanted to kind of touch on that, and I'm glad you answered the way you did, because you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. But I do know that there are some fans that are kind of feeling a little frustrated with how quiet they've kind of been on that front, and how vague some of the comments have been, including the ones from Venable just this morning.
All right.
So, just a few things to keep in mind. But I'm with you on that. I think with this ball club, I mean, honestly, this roster is. Yeah, I made the comment on social media earlier this week in one of the one of the White Sox Facebook groups, that outside of Luis Robert, and that's if he stays on the team.
Yeah.
Outside of Luis Robert, the rest of this, this roster seems like it's pretty much plug and play, at least for position players. Like you can pretty much throw anybody out there, and any of the infielders, throw them wherever you want them. Any of the outfielders, throw them wherever you want them outside of Luis, and you're probably going to get close to the same offensive production no matter what you do. So in that case, I feel like maybe this is kind of one of those things where we've talked about those position players a little bit, but with the injuries mounting, now you almost have to just put like your best defenders out there, so you're not ruining this young pitching staff that you might have, become your future, and you don't want to ruin their confidence too much. So I don't know where that goes, but we'll see. Hopefully these guys come back healthy as soon as possible, because my goodness, man. I mean, if we got to deal with the injury bug the way we have been, and I know it seems like it's been a lot, but honestly, we're not as bad as a lot of MLB teams out there. I think we're just a little jaded after the Herb Schneider years. So, but tots and pairs to all those guys
Yeah.
and their injuries, and I hope they come back ready to go. So, the only thing I wanted to ask you about along that is there's a lot of people out there, wherever you look, clamoring for the White Sox to sign some outfield depth, whether it's like, Verdugo or somebody else. Quick thoughts on that.
I think they already addressed it with Taylor and Slater, and obviously they got hurt. So I don't know if you're going to take like a late swing on a guy. Verdugo. I know Verdugo's out there, but like the issue is you have to also convince these guys who are going to be taking minimum contracts to play for your team. Obviously, if it'd be great to sign some of these guys, but like, does Verdugo really want to play for a 40-win team next year? Coming off the season he had with the Yankees. Um, and I know there's kind of a hope that he gets traded, but you know, it's a slippery slope when you're trying to um, kind of come back on a 1 year deal. So I don't know. I just I think Slater's hopefully there for opening day, especially if Benny's not ready, and then Taylor, who knows? But they do at least have some guys I think are capable. I shouldn't say capable. Are at least usable players. We'll put it that way. In the minors that could play, without rushing anybody. Zach Deloach, by the way, was the name I was trying to think of earlier that I could not come up with.
Roger that.
Yeah, but I mean, you can play Colas out there. You have Fletcher, Deloach. You have a couple of guys who are pretty high up there in the system and that could play. I think
Yeah,
at
and
least as a
and
stopgap
again,
until it's ready.
we're pretty much in agreement there. I don't see them going out and signing Verdugo or any of the other, you know, give them a chance type free agents that are available. Just for the simple fact that a lot of these injuries look like they're going to be, minor.
Hmm.
Guys are only going to miss small periods of time. And of course, like you said, we've got other guys in the system that can, fill in for the time being. Oscar Colas's, which, I mean, this guy's not doing anything to help his case whatsoever. I mean, he's just been a butcher in the outfield, and the bat when the bat's good, it's good.
All right.
But unfortunately, you can't get any consistency, any level of consistency out of him whatsoever. You brought up Deloach, who again, this is a guy who's already got some major league experience, including some with the White Sox. You've got Fletcher, same deal. You got Corey Julks, same thing. He's got some time with the White Sox, all still in the organization, and then a handful of prospects that you could even throw in the mix if you wanted to too. With that, what I feel are guys that are probably never going to be MLB regulars, but and you don't have to worry about starting the clock on them too soon or hindering their development. If you just need to get 2 or 3 weeks out of them to fill a hole, because again, we say this a lot. We're going to say it probably 1,000 times more. This is not a season where we expect to win pretty much anything. We're just hoping to not, set another record at this point, right? So
Right.
break our own record. So let's go ahead and move on from that. Uh, Enough of the injury talk. It's kind of depressing. I'd rather
Let's get
talk
more
about
positive.
some. What's that?
I said, let's get more positive.
Yeah, let's do that. I would like to go down the bullpen because I think the bullpen is actually constructed a little bit better than it has been the last couple of years. Uh, I think the White Sox, Bannister, and pretty much everybody gets. I don't know if Venable had a say in it, but they had a direction this year. Even if they went out and got some guys that weren't exactly world beaters, they did go out and get some guys, whether it be via trade, towards that middle end of last year, and then this off season, that just show some experience or some really positive outlook on what they could be. So why don't we just go ahead and get into that? I personally did my homework on just the guys that are projected in the 40 man on MLB.com. There are a
Yep.
handful of guys that are prospects that I feel like could crack this bullpen at some point throughout the season. But, even though we are Future Sox, this is the MLB show. So I let James and Ian kind of handle that stuff. But if you got a couple of prospects you want to throw out there, by all means, I'm just telling you where I did my homework. So why don't you go
Right.
ahead and kick us off with a couple of these guys, and I'll kind of go down the list with you.
Yeah, I think there were some interesting ways people were acquired. I hope Getz isn't trying to get too cute with the whole let's trade a prospect for a reliever and hope to then have that reliever play good and then trade him again for a better prospect. Um, when it comes to this year's trade deadline, I think they did that with Cam Boozer. That trade was kind of like, all right, I get what you're trying to do, but that's an interesting approach. I think it's a good approach if it works. If the player plays well, right, and you kind of have guys that you want to target, and hopefully that's someone that Bannister is targeting, and that's someone that Bannister feels confident in, bringing in, a guy like Cam Boozer or was another guy that they brought in. Um, Tyler Gilbert, another guy they traded for. But just because everybody needs arms when it goes down the stretch. But um, yeah, just kind of throw out three names and then we'll kind of go from there. Cam Boozer, someone I'm excited about. And then you have Jared Schuster, who came back from last year. Obviously, we've already talked Baroa, so I'll move on him. But kind of the Shaka from spring training as well. Penn Murphy, who's pitched really well so far this spring. And yeah, those are three guys I'm pretty excited about for this upcoming season. Some of those guys, I don't know if they'll make the 40, but we'll see.
I think I think all those guys are on the
Yeah,
40 right now, aren't they? Already?
I believe so. Schuster's the only one I'm questionable about, just because we'll
I'm
see.
pretty
But
sure he's on the
he's on.
40. And I think
He's on.
one or two got added because we do have a couple of guys on the 60 day. I think Schultens is on
Mhm.
the 60 day. Kai Bush is on the 60 day. So it gives you a little room to move guys onto the 40 man. Um, Schuster, obviously a guy who pitched with the White Sox a little bit last year with the MLB club, homegrown guy. Uh, and then you brought up Penn Murphy. I mean,
Yeah.
this watching him in spring, the little bit that I have in the highlights that we get. I mean, I think he's only got like 4 innings pitched or something so far in spring training, something like 4 or 5. But I know that he's got a 0 ERA, and his
Yeah.
WHIP is like almost immaculate. He's given up like one base runner or something for like. I think his WHIP is like 0.25 or 0.35 or somewhere in there. If I just looked at it this afternoon, and I probably have something. Yeah, 0.33. The thing about Penn Murphy is he missed all of last season, right?
Yeah.
So he came from Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? Or no?
I think
No.
Seattle, maybe. I know
Yeah,
he pitched in Seattle in 22-23. I don't know what.
that's what. Yeah, Seattle. You're right.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, he's got that crazy delivery, and
Right.
it's enough to make you feel a little uneasy because guys like that tend to not be the best pitchers in the world. But then there's a handful of those guys that make it work for him, changing up the arm slot and the where the eye is for the batter. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him. I think if he continues to pitch the way he does in spring, he's a shoe in
Right.
for the bullpen. So
No, excited for him. He's a guy who has a career like 270 ERA. So he's had proven success. Obviously, he's a little older. He's 30 years old with only 2 years of MLB experience.
does
He
he
was
even
a
have
third,
two? I think he had.
third
I
round
thought it was
pick.
like maybe it was two. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
22-23 he pitched.
Okay. All right.
Very little in 23, but yeah. Um, so no, a good kind of under the radar pickup that with him being 30 years old, I would assume if he pitches well in the regular season, it's a guy you could trade and swap for a flyer, like they did with Tanner Banks last year. Like I mentioned, everybody needs bullpen help when it comes to the deadline. Everybody's will take another reliever, so a good piece to have when it comes to the trade deadline.
All right. And a lot of fans are gonna say, "Well, I'm done with picking up second and third level prospects for relievers," but you got to take into consideration who the White Sox are right now. The Ishbia brothers they're not owners yet.
Right.
Every report out there has told us that it might take some time before Justin gets controlling interest of the team. Who knows if he ever gets full ownership of the team, right? Because this is a group that you'd have to convince to sell off all their shares to a single owner. And the reality is as long as that's not in the books, this is a team that doesn't spend money on free agents, or at least not
Right.
big money on free agents. So you're kind of hoping that you hit on some of these guys. It's load up on everything you can load up on at a young early age. Hopefully your development team comes along and is better than it has been in years past. And you can find that diamond in the rough because you're not going to get what a lot of these other richer teams are doing for them as far as free agent pickups go. So
Yeah, I think it's a great
Uh,
point. James with a good point.
yeah,
Guy with
4 years
4 years
of
of
control.
control.
And if he comes out looking the way he has so far in spring, you might be able to get that diamond in the rough for him.
Yeah.
All right. So, couple other names. I mean, so you brought up Boozer. You know, he came over from Boston last year. Uh, he's a guy that I feel like could be impactful. You know, he's got a little bit of experience, and honestly, he's a he's I think he's got a like a 4+ lifetime ERA, which out of your bullpen, not horrible. Probably
Sub
about a
3.3.
oh 3 point. I'm sorry. Am I
He debuted
thinking?
last year as a 32-year-old, so he's a little older, but
Okay, but yeah, I think he was close
yeah.
to it. If I'm not mistaken, so I have him down. He's got 56 strikeouts last year, and that's just a quick note that I took on him. But I want to say that's pretty close to one an inning. I don't remember how many innings he pitched, but it was probably like 57 or 58. He was real
Yeah.
close. So again, I would take that. A guy's his whip was a little bit more elevated than you'd like to see, up near 1.5. It was like 1.4 something. But again, not real concerning if you can get a guy to lock in and be somebody that you hope to flip maybe later on.
Yeah. And he's the prime example. We've already talked about it of giving up a prospect and trying to flip him at the deadline. Obviously he's another guy who um, is older with a ton of control because he broke rookie status last year, so should have 5 years of control. Um, but we'll see how that goes for him. And but I like the idea. It's just will it work?
Exactly. All right, so you got a couple other names you want to throw out there?
I have a ton of names. There's so many
Oh
relievers.
yeah, there is a ton of names, but I figured I'd let you go. His name. Thank you for that, Ian. I figured I'd let you go down the line, and you do your thing, and like I said, I'll jump in when I can. But
Yeah,
I think this is funny. His whip is good, but what about his nay? That's some dad jokes for you from our very own Ian Eskridge. I'll leave that one up there for just a second.
that's great. That is fantastic.
It's terrible, but
I was like in middle school when that was the thing,
oh,
just to
dude,
make everybody feel dated.
it feels like last week to me. I mean, I know
Middle
it's
school.
probably been like 10 years or more, but
Yeah,
it's
because I
got
was
to be
like
like,
what 16 when Odell was doing that. So yeah, I would have been in seventh grade.
ugh, wow.
It was
Thanks
it was worse
thanks for
than
making me
seventh
feel
grade.
old, dude.
Yeah, I do that a lot. Um, so you have Iriarte, who is pushing for rotations, but the other issue the Sox have is they have like I don't know 5 guys who they could either stretch as rotation pieces or could be relievers. You have Shane Smith, who is another guy they pick up in the Rule 5 draft. I just mentioned um,
Hyrule
Uriarte, who's trying
Uriarte.
to switch out.
All right,
You have Bryce Wilson, another
right.
guy who wants to be a starter, but there's also a reliever in there.
Yeah,
Um,
Eater is in there.
yeah,
Who could, as a matter of fact, I think on the 40 man on MLB.com they have him listed in the bullpen, but essentially, I'm pretty sure they're going to want to stretch him out, and he's been a starter most of his career, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yeah, I believe so. Well, and they're going to have a lot of these issues because, and we're not going to get into prospect talk, but just quickly, you have Smith, Schultz, and Taylor. Those are 3, and then you already have Cannon, Thorpe, Martin. Like you only have 5 rotation spots. So you're going to have some of these guys that, um,
right,
highly elo guys that have to be
Nistrini
in the
and
bullpen.
Leisure and all these
Right.
guys that some of them may have a cup of coffee in the majors, but are all guys that could, and a lot of those guys, like you said, can be starters or slash bullpen guys. So, yeah, again, we can talk about prospects a little bit. It's difficult not to this time of season.
Right.
When you've got everybody kind of playing together and you've got all these split squad games going on, and you're going to see MLB regulars playing with some of your prospects. So I get it. We can get into it a little bit. I just don't like to spend a whole lot of time on it because I don't want to run over the same ground as
No. Right.
is Ian and James, and honestly, Ian and James are they're the authority on that kind of stuff when it comes to the White Sox, at least anyway. So
But just kind of looking in the future. So, um, yeah, and then you have guys that are truly, um, bullpen pieces. Ian mentioned some good names down there. Um, I think I'm last time I checked, AHT was still a guy. I don't know. By the way, I'm not going to try to attempt his full name. It's like Anthony. No, not
yeah,
going to do it.
Tui out, but yeah, it's like that. It was like Marquez Tui Asasopo or
Yeah,
whatever back in the day. Like once I hear it a few times, I'll be able to get into it. But yeah, Anthony HT, whatever his
AHT. That's what I'm going to
right,
call him
exactly.
all the way up here. So you do have some guys who are like truly relief pitchers only coming up as well. So I don't know how many of those guys reach Hopi Tu Onatoa.
Tui Onatoa. Even with him breaking it down phonetically, I can't get it. Thank you, Ian, for trying. We'll get there. We will get there. I'm gonna throw that up on the screen so everybody can see that. Hoopy Tui Toi Onatoa. Yeah. All right. Whatever, brother. I appreciate you trying. Tui. Tui. He's still trying
Sure.
to work with me. Still trying to work with me. James Hesterman bringing up Clev. I'd rather not. He's not. I mean, even with
I
the
don't even know if he
injuries, I
makes.
don't
I
think.
don't think he makes the 26, but
Yeah, he's not. I don't think so either. I don't know if he ever even is he on the 40. I don't believe he's on the 40.
no, I think it was a NRI. So
Yeah, he's a minor league contract guy. So I don't
yeah,
even know if he makes the team ever this season, unless he has a phenomenal, run in wherever he's at in Charlotte.
or injuries
Um,
go horribly wrong, which
oh, we talked about that already. I'm beyond it. Let's not talk about injuries anymore because I don't want to put that out into the universe right now. So, Max, we will talk about some of the highlights today a little bit later. But yeah, he's talking about that Teal bomb, 3-run homer in
yeah.
the eighth. But we'll get into it a little bit.
But then you just have.
Um,
I mean, it's crazy though because I mean, if you really go through the list, you could have just name them all off: Boozer, Anderson, Varlin, Wilson. Steven Wilson's still in Charlotte, I believe, or NRI now. Shane Smith, Schuster, Baroa. I have them all listed down here. Iriarte,
Tyler Gilbert,
Gilbert, Penn
Uriarte,
Murphy,
Yep,
Justin Dunn,
yep.
Matt Wilson. Plus, I mean, you have like legitimately 15 options. I don't know if any of them are great, but you have 15 options that you could realistically go to the bullpen this year. So it'll be interesting to see like how does spring affect that. Like Justin Anderson's not having a great spring. Does he get bumped off of the bullpen? Um,
I
you
think
know,
Anderson's a guy they want to see though, so I
so do
feel
I.
like
I
he's
agree,
he's
but
pretty much in my opinion he's pretty much a shoe in
yeah,
at least to start the season. Now if he kind of falls flat on his face, and he's only got a handful of what is it, 2 or 3 innings pitched so far, I think. And yeah, he's got his ERA is a little elevated, but I mean that happens when you've only got 2 or 3 innings pitched. Where you give
right,
up a couple of runs and your ERA is like 60, which I mean I think that's Anderson. That's where he's at 63 with a WHIP of 8. So Schuster, another guy, couple innings pitched, he's got an 18 ERA. So I don't really look at ERA so much in spring training just because these guys aren't getting enough
right.
appearances to kind of show anything. Thanks, James, for throwing that up there. Yeah, Heasley and Isert. I think all of those guys are potentially could make the bullpen, like Jacob's saying. I mean, we're just throwing name after name out there. But I think I'm going to ask Jacob here who he thinks at least has the best shot. And if you want to give me 10 to just kind of give a round out of 3, extra 2 or 3 extra names that are on the cusp outside of your 10, you are you prepared to do that? Are you prepared to make a prediction on who you think's going to
I could
start
get
the
there.
season out
I
there?
could probably get there.
Okay.
Um, so what's the number here? We're shooting for
Give
what?
me give me
8?
between 8 and 10.
All right.
Obviously I think we're probably going to be rolling with 8 just because of the extra man now. on the 26th. You're carrying extra pitchers these days. And, obviously that leaves benches a little bit short, but that's just the way the direction of baseball is going right now. So,
Official
yeah, give me
26th
between.
man that somebody's going to get injured tomorrow. Boozer, Anderson, Varland, Schuster. I won't count Baroa because he's hurt. Um, Penn Murphy, of course. Gilbert, I think, is a guy they're going to get some run because of they traded for him. So I think he's got kind of an inside track there. Shane Smith, that's 7. And then already said him. Trying to get another name here. I'll throw Jordan Leisure in there.
Okay.
I definitely left somebody off, but yeah.
All right.
There's my 8 if I get it.
Out of that 8, give me one that you give me 2 guys at the back end of the bullpen. Doesn't matter if you don't necessarily have to label them setup and closer, but give me the 2 that you want to see in the late innings of the game.
Iriarte for sure. See, my whole thing going into this was that Prelander Barreau was going to be the Sox All-Star, was going to be a closer, was going to have a great year, and then he got hurt. So, trying to give you a name here. Let's go Penn Murphy. Is that a good
Okay. I can dig
closer,
it.
Murphy the
Setup.
reliable setup guy. Sure, why not?
All right, I can dig it.
But it's crazy how many options they have in the bullpen. I mean, just like
It is.
spare.
It is.
volume.
I'm gonna throw a name out there that I'm gonna add. Most of yours are pretty similar to who I think is gonna make it. I've got Anderson, Schuster, Boozer, Varland, Eater, Tyler Gilbert, Penn Murphy, and then a couple of extra ones here. Like, did you say Shane Smith?
I did. He was having a good
So
spring.
I've got him on there, and then Fraser Ellard is a guy
Yeah.
that I can see, and he's another one of those guys that we've been following for a while now here at FutureSox, and especially my buddy Ian all those years with White Sox Daily. I think Fraser Ellard has potentially got back end type. And I'm not saying he like closer, maybe setup,
Right.
maybe the guy just before the setup where you're looking for a couple. You're looking for a couple big outs, Ian. I know you do, and I like me some Fraser Eller too.
Put it on a t-shirt, Ian.
Yeah, Fraser, he's got good stuff, and he's been one of those guys that you can count on for command, at least most of the time. There has been times where he struggled with a little bit, but I mean, dude's just he's got a good makeup. I think he's got the mentality for it. So that's a guy I think I'll throw in. What's he say? Gay for resin boy. Come on now, James. Yes, I love the way he manhandles a rosin bag. I do.
Somebody clip that. Somebody
Yeah,
clip that and put that from
I'm sure. Well, Ian's already had a preseason shot of him taking the mound and absolutely spiking the rosin bag. So, but I mean, that's what I say when makeup. You think about, we had that Australian guy that a lot of people liked here in Chicago. You remember him?
Don't think so.
The Australian closer. Last couple years.
Yeah.
Battled lymphoma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody?
Pick up your down.
All right. So, yeah, he was known to come in and scream and yell and get fired up. And I think that's when I say you've got the makeup, that's that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. A guy who's pumped and ready to go and ready to attack. So that's why I kind of feel like he's got the stuff to be a back end guy. And then the other guy who, I haven't really seen much of him except for this year, but Chase Smith has really got me really got me kind of pumped just in the short amount of time that I've seen him in spring training this year. And I could, or sorry, did I say Chase? Shane Smith.
Chase,
Pardon,
Shane, 5 letters.
pardon me. And I'm sorry, Shane. I know you're not listening, but if you are, my bad, dude. Shane Smith. I mean, the dude's got
Yeah.
gas, and his minor league numbers are really, really solid. And I know he's young, and both of these guys young, and not a ton of experience. But I mean, why not? At this point, where we're talking about a team that's not gonna be good, and we're not looking at being even close to contending in the Central unless some crazy upside down world like the poles shift and everything just kind of goes in the way of the White Sox. But I don't mind giving these guys at a young age some high pressure situations just to see how they handle them. I'm not
Yeah.
saying leave them there, but let's put them out there and see what kind of makeup they have. So,
Yeah,
that's kind of where my head's at on that.
yeah. Um, and he honestly might vie for a rotation spot. I think that's still up in the arms for him. We'll see. But yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll talk catchers next.
It's actually on the docket. It's where
Yeah.
we're gonna move. So these comments in our comments section here, pretty much a perfect segue.
Yeah.
Unless you got anything else you want to talk about
I
with the
think that's
bullpen,
it.
I think we made our predictions for at least the beginning of the season.
Mhm.
Obviously, there's going to be a lot of movement all over this place for this team all year, especially if some of those trades that we talked about, kind of come to fruition at that deadline. So let's go ahead and roll into catcher since we're talking about Thice and Narvaez being both brought up in the chat right now. So why don't you go ahead and let's start with Thice and your thoughts on him.
Yeah. Chicago Cub legend. He was there for what, like 3 weeks. I think he's an interesting option. We'll see. It's really going to depend on if they want to play Cuero and if they want to play Kyle Teal. They also have Omar Narvaez, who has, to Ian's credit, looked horrid in spring training, but was a defensive first guy back, whenever. But defense has fallen off, so it's really, I think, those guys are going to depend on if they want to play Cuero and if they want to play Teal. I would assume Cuero gets first shot, um, but we'll see. Just considering that he played a significant amount of time in the White Sox organization in AAA. It's also tough because you don't want to send Cuero and Teal both to Charlotte. One of those guys is either going to have to go down to Birmingham, or one of those guys is going to have to make the major league roster. So, um, we'll see. And then there's Corey Lee, who got hurt today. They put
Yeah,
out a statement,
unfortunately.
I think, non-injury. I'm a very anti-Corey Lee person, so anti-Corey Lee and anti-Tim Elko. So I
Okay.
infuriate a good majority of the fan base, but hey.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree. And the only reason they say that is because I think Corey Lee could potentially be a backup for somebody. I'm not necessarily saying the White Sox. I don't feel like he's an everyday starter, although it would probably start the season that way as long as he's healed from this injury. As our very own Max says, he got to talk to Lee on the Zoom today, and then he gets hurt. So, uh, you know, I'm not totally against Corey Lee. I mean, he made some improvements to his game last year. Does he have a huge bat? No. Does his bat the ball the best? No. He'll put the ball out of the park occasionally. He'll throw some runners out. He's got great pop time, which everybody talked about last year. Pop time, pop time, pop time. I wish he would squeeze some balls a little
Yeah.
bit better sometimes. Like, I don't know, the White Sox catchers last couple of season, it's like those mitts are freaking, full of Vaseline. Like, balls right in the pocket of the glove, right in the palm, just squirting out of there. That's not a Corey Lee thing. That's pretty much all of our catchers. But he does block some of the tough ones. Sometimes he lets a one that should have been an easy block, get through. So my focus is if he's got to start the season as a starter, I'm okay with that. If that means that Caro and Teal are getting a little bit more development before they become the combo that we hope is going to be just a lightning bolt. You know what I mean? So Elmo. Thanks for that misspelling in the comments. If you're listening on the podcast forum and not seeing us live, we've got guys calling Elko Elmo, and I don't know. Maybe there's that could be a great
Almost
nickname.
scared me as a child.
It could be a great nickname because he can be a little bit intimidating. Evil Elmo.
Some of that Sesame Street stuff. If you're young enough, it'll put a fear into you. I don't know the eyes.
Yeah.
Something about the eyes.
So funny you bring that up, and I won't stay on this too long, but I still think it's hilarious. My parents, God rest their souls, are both not with us anymore, but my dad used to still laugh at me about this. Six Flags, back when it was like when Six Flags was first opening. That's how old I am here in Chicago. It was still Marriott's Great America. But I remember, and dude, this is like a core memory kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like I was like 3 or something, 2.
Okay.
I was in a stroller, and I remember it. But I remember going into the theater, and they have their costumed, characters, the actors. And this thing, I was Foghorn Leghorn, came up to me, running down the aisle of the theater, and came right over to my stroller. And I think I puked and pooped and vomited and peed all at the same time, and never wanted to go back to Six Flags. I don't think we went back until I was like 12 because I was traumatized.
We went to Disney World, Disneyland. I don't know the difference. It was the one in Florida, and one of the dwarfs scared the crap out of me. Like one of the little Snow White dwarfs scared. I didn't want to see that man again. No, anyway, quickly, my hate on Elko. Just very briefly, high strikeout rate at an age where he should be not dominating, but he should be dominating the competition. He should be playing up against competition. He's played more baseball, and he's already got a 30% K rate. I don't know. The power's cool, but I don't know. I'm not big on Tim Elko. He's already 26.
Right. You know what?
That being said, if he
I'm
plays
I'm looking at George Wolko. Honestly, I think he's going to be the first baseman of the future, even though he's not at first at the moment. But that's just me. All right, so let's talk a little bit about these catchers.
Yeah, sorry, totally off track.
Yeah, no, we got a little sidetracked with story time and core memories and fears and all that stuff. But so we know we have obviously Corey Lee, who again injured today. It doesn't seem like it's anything serious, but we'll see how that goes. And then Thome, who's been talked about as being the backup as of right now. We've also got Caro and goodness gracious, we just talked about them. The two guys, Caro and
Kyle
Teal.
I forgot his name earlier.
Kyle Teal. Yeah, sorry, Kyle. Who are probably going to be the battery of the future behind the plate for the White Sox. Omar Narvaez. I mean, there's just a long list of guys throughout the entire system. It was the one place where it just seemed like they loaded up throughout the off season. And I don't feel like we need to talk about all of them, right? But I want to talk about this simple fact is I do like the fact that they did load up. Because White Sox fans were a little PO'd when they saw all these catchers coming back. And, not all of them being superstars, right? Or potential superstars. But I just want to say this. Catching is one of the most volatile positions. As far as position players goes, probably the most volatile position in baseball outside of pitchers, especially bullpenners. But to be able to load up is one of those things where if you can get some value by trading one of those guys, because every team is looking for catching. It just always is. It's one of those things that everybody's always looking for. Whether it be you trade a guy by himself or you put him in as a package deal to kind of sweeten the deal. I think that it's a really good direction for the White Sox to go in if they're going to continue to make trades and build the system, like we said, to hopefully get something in return
Yeah.
that pans out somewhere down the line.
Yeah, no, I love this take. I hated the fact that when the Sox traded for Kyle Teal and that Crochet trade, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, what are they doing? They already have Cuero and Teal, or Cuero and Lee." Um, it was like, first off, two catchers play. You need a backup. Second of all, don't have a primary DH, and then you could trade whoever. And to hate on Corey Lee, I'm not going to anymore. But um, you know, Corey's a guy who will probably stick around just because he's got some. He can be like a Martin Maldonado type of guy where like doesn't hit for a high average, has some pop, and the defense is good enough. I understand the framing's not great,
No,
um, but that's something that can be improved upon, and I know that's why they brought in McKibben. But he's a guy who can kind of stick around. Those catchers that profile that well, defense and power, they play, especially as backups. So. Um, I think if you have Teal and Cuero and you can trade Lee, and then obviously you have Stassi and Narvaez, and I really think that the Sox hope was to have one of Stassi and Narvaez be good enough to play, and then package him with Lee, and then whenever Cuero and Teal are ready to bring those guys up. If Cuero does start in AAA, I don't think it'll be for long. Um, I think he'll be up here pretty soon, so we'll see. And also I like the way that Cuero and Teal complement. Cuero more of an offensive guy, although I think his defense is underrated. Teal more of a high floor guy because of the defense, limited offensively power wise. So I like the way
but
their
we
game.
did have a bomb,
Yeah,
a
it went
bomb,
far
a
away.
couple of
So
bombs now. Roki Sasaki, and now today another
yeah,
3-run shot in the 8th inning. Uh, I don't. Maybe he's unlocked some power that wasn't there
yeah,
before. Who knows? Maybe Fuller's been working with him, and some of these guys are pulling something out of him that has been there and just missing.
yeah,
I don't really know, but I'm kind of with you. As a battery, as the two of them then together, and who knows how long that lasts. Again, this could be. Oh, and see, I didn't know this. Ian says he can actually play the outfield
yeah,
fairly well as well too. But to your point, these are guys that if one is better defensively and the other is better offensively, can easily come into the lineup as a DH on days that they're
yeah.
not catching. Unfortunately, if you're only going to carry two catchers on your team, if you're to make a defensive or if you're going to make any kind of switch with the catcher, now you're stuck without a DH for the rest of the game. Yeah,
And you'd
I'm
do it
not
all.
even going to repeat that on air, but thank you guys. You guys are, I'm a little tongue tied. Chat's chat's getting a little dirty. You guys should
Just Ian. Everybody
go
else,
say some Hail Marys and get out the soap. Anywho, yeah, I mean it's. I think that once those two guys are up together, you can plug and play a little bit with the two of them and try to get the best defense with the best offense out there, and vice versa. As far as like Theis, it was brought up in the chat earlier that some people are just done with him already,
yeah,
and it's kind of hard to say that. It's early in spring. I don't put a whole lot of. I'm just not. I'm not going to put my eggs all in one basket when it comes to spring training. Goodness gracious, you guys are terrible. Knock it off. Naked batting practice. What is going on here? We're just losing control. We're at the
BP.
1 hour mark, and I'm losing my mind. But yeah. So, anywho, uh, Dice. I don't want to totally, sell him out like you said. The Cubs legend. I think maybe he gets a chance to play early on just to see if he can stick. If not, he'll probably get quite a bit of time. Well, actually, to be honest with you, I think the MLB level is the only chance he does have to get a lot of time because if Caro and Teal are down in the minors still, those are going to be your guys that are going to get the most time behind the dish.
Listen, I
So
watched. Martin Maldonado played way too much baseball for the White Sox last year. So
Uh,
it's a team that will give a long leash to catchers. At least they did last year. So
yeah,
we'll see.
yeah, agreed. Agreed. And we've been seeing that for a while. Zach Collins had some runs there that we hoped he was going to be the guy that was touted, but never came to.
Next
It was
podcast, let's just riddle off like horrible White Sox catchers for an hour and leave.
I mean, we could riddle off
We can
guys
do
that
it.
in the last since the last rebuild that just got
Yeah.
way too much time. We can spend a show on that once before the season starts for sure. Um. So yeah, I think. Do you have any real notes on catching that you want to share before we move on?
I don't think so. I mean, I think between Thaiss and Navarez, one of them will make the team. They'll
You
run
think
that
we're going to
until they
carry three?
No. I
No.
think Lee and then one of Thaiss and Navarez will make the team, and then it'll go from there. Whenever Cuero's ready, they'll DFA likely Thaiss, and that'll be it.
Okay. All right. Oh, Ian's bringing up Alfredo Gonzalez. I really don't have anything to add.
I don't even know who that is. Was that before? I'm missing a joke somewhere, but oh no, I'm
Yeah, I
not.
don't know where he's going with that either, to be honest with you. Let's see. Alfredo Gonzalez.
Played 9 games in 2018.
All right. Yeah. Didn't even remember that. Thank you.
Ian, put
Had
that
to
on your resume.
had to
We're
go back and look up on the on the tandem. Beef Wellington and chicken Alfredo. I do remember it now. Son of a gun. That's what I needed to hear. There we go. All right. Yeah. Anywho, so there's been some Robert chat in just coming up in the chat right now. This is hot takes and heaters, and I did say we were gonna kind of bring in some new segments. So really quickly to end out the show on a positive note,
yeah.
we're gonna talk about a couple of guys that are on heaters. Jake's gonna pick a guy. Jacob, sorry, I don't know if you go by Jake.
Either
Do you?
or, I don't care.
And hopefully I'll remember to get your name right because every time I say it, I see it, I want to say Thome, but it is Thome
Another
for
thing
those
that
of you out
doesn't
there.
matter to me, believe me.
I
Being
know, but
compared
I
to
did it.
him,
I did it last week, and I want to make it a point to get it right. So,
no, good.
let's. Who do you have that you want to talk about being on a heater right now?
Lenine Sosa.
Here you go.
He's
Go
got an
ahead.
over 1,000 OPS in spring training now. 15 at bats, but I think listen, the Sox are going to need some power out of somewhere. It'll be nice if they can get it out of second base. I'd love to see him. It's tough too because Chase Mydroth got it right. Ian has had a heck of a kind of another fun guy at second base, and two guys that I don't think you want to move away from second base. And I don't know if you really want to DH Lenine Sosa, but hey, whatever. But no, I think he's been fantastic. He got on base again today, scored a run. So, um, he's hitting the living daylights out of the ball. He got a really good end of the regular season last year. Um, and I'm hoping it's all finally working out. They finally got him some consistent at bats, and just hoping it kind of really takes the next step because I think he's got the tools to be a truly not. I don't know if he's able to be an all-star type of guy, but he could be a guy who puts up 20 home runs from the second base position, hits for an okay average, and I think he'd be okay with that.
Yeah, and you know what? I've been saying it for a long time that I'm a big fan of him. I know that his defense is a little shaky. I think second base probably is the best fit for him, but I also feel like he's big enough to play first base if needed. He's another guy that if his bat carries over from the second half of last season, could potentially fall into a DH position. So I just feel like there's a need for him somewhere on this roster. They got to give him some time just to see if last year does carry over, in my opinion,
Right.
before they give up on him completely. He is out of options, so it's kind of a make or break thing for him at this point. And I just really hope that it comes together for him. But yeah, I mean, awesome spring numbers so far.
Yeah.
So thanks for that. I am going to. I'm going to pick on the obvious a little bit here, and it has come up in the chat. And the reason I do that is because I've been saying that I don't think Luis Robert Jr. gets traded before the season starts. Now, I'm still saying that, but that's still with a little bit of a question mark on the end because of the spring that he's having. He looks healthy. He looks good. The wheels look nice. He's running all over the field. He doesn't necessarily look like he's full speed, but for a guy like Luis Robert, and he just might be holding back to not, to make sure that he is. But there are times where I feel like he's kind of not running as fast as he could. But when you've got Luis Roberts' speed and you glide all over the place in the outfield, you don't necessarily have to be at 100. If you're at 95, fantastic. But we got to talk about the bat. I mean, 353 batting average to this point in the season, 17 at bats, and he's got 11, almost 1,200 OPS. So, I mean, if this guy keeps crushing and he keeps doing what he's doing, and somehow, some way, after all these years of watching him, he seems to be laying off pitches
Yeah.
that I feel like normally would have gotten him. Those ones that are down in the zone, whether it's in on the ankles or a foot and a half off the plate, which I still see him waving at those ones a little bit. The slider off the outer edge is going to be a tough one for him. But the ones that are down and in, that I've seen him kind of just hack at a little bit, he seems to be, pulling the bat a little bit and not swinging, taking those ridiculous swings. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe we get a Luis Robert trade before the season starts. There are a couple teams out there, Pittsburgh namely being the one that I feel like can afford to go out, and they have a need, as well.
Yeah.
And hopefully somebody will meet Chris Getz's ask if he does get traded before the season starts. If not, I'm also not opposed to watching this version of Luis Robert for the first half of the season. It might actually give us something outside of our rotation and our pitching staff to be excited about. So that's my heater for the week.
Yeah, no, love it. He's been great. I think it's tough though, because you're like, if you're watching, if he doesn't get traded before the season starts, it's like, oh my gosh, please don't get hurt. Just the entire first half.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, my dream for the White Sox trade is that he goes to Houston for Cam Smith. That's my dream trade, but that's a little rich. Cam Smith looks really good right now, and I know. But if Luis keeps hitting like this, that's the hope.
Right on. You got anything else you want to add for the week?
So.
No. All right. Well, we're at almost the 110 mark here, so I think we're gonna call it. Next week, you can come back and find us here at 8 p.m. We are going to run down the starting rotation and where we think who's going to land where. And, we've already got a pretty good idea of what's going on there with some of the leaks and some of the quotes from Getz and Venable. But we're going to give our opinion on that, as well as, maybe get a little bit more dialed in on the starting roster for opening day. Get some insight into the 26-man. So make sure you come in and check us out for that. But, we love you guys for being in the chat, keeping us going. Remember that we have James and Ian, who are going to be on with the one and only FutureSox podcast, usually on Sunday night. They did make a pivot here this past week. But before we get into that, I want to make the announcement that if you don't already know, our very own Ian Eskridge is going to be on the Oju with B-Flow from the 108 coming up here. I believe it's on Monday night. So you guys check that out when you get an opportunity. But anyways, this has been Hot Takes and Heaters. You can find us Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. right here on YouTube, or as Ian says, the Purple app. For all of our written content and Patreon exclusives, you can find that at FutureSox.net. Check out our prospect and MLB highlights on X/FutureSox and on FutureSox YouTube channel. Please like, subscribe, and hit that noti button for any and all content updates. And just a quick reminder, on all of our live streams, our super chats are open. If you like any of our content, you can go ahead and do that as well on Patreon on the website. And we appreciate all of you. Until next time, go White Sox.